Hi, everybody. Welcome to Ask the Amigos. This is the show where we answer our Discord community's burning questions.
Mm.
We start things off with Jazz Dog. He says, I desperately need the help of the Amigos to quell my cosmological confusion. We all know the universe is expanding at about 70 kilometers per second per megaparsec. But if the universe is expanding, what exactly is it expanding into? Your thoughts, Aaron?
Well, I'm no astrologer, Bode.
Mm-hmm.
But I winked right there. But I believe that the area in between galaxies is just basically like a void. And so
Right.
my guess is we're devoiding the void. Sort of like if you like have a double lot and you put your house on that one lot and then you sort of like think maybe I'll get a pool or maybe
Mm-hmm.
I'll expand the house. You start edging into the other lot. That lot was a void lot, but now there's crap in it. Now it's part of something. That's my
Mm.
guess.
That's where they get the word parsec from. It's part of
Is that
something.
really? Okay.
Yeah. Um, I've always thought about the universe expanding like water in an ice cube tray.
Okay. Can you elaborate on that?
Well, have you ever poured water in an ice cube tray?
I have.
Okay. I think of the universe like just kind of filling out a predetermined shape that just happens to resemble an ice cube tray.
Huh. Okay. I don't know what that means exactly, but sounds good to me.
Yeah. Barkbit asks, you've been tasked with making a movie adaptation of a game of your choosing. The only crux is that you have to play the lead role yourself. What game or character do you pick to portray? So I'll read this one more time. You're making a movie adaptation of a game of your choosing, and
Yeah.
you've got to play the lead role.
Okay. Um, you want to go first on that? I think I got a couple ideas, but
I mean, the one that comes to mind immediately is I've always wanted to be the king of the universe.
Calamari Damachi.
That's right. That's right. That guy, I already have his clothes, and all I need is a pompadour wig, and I'm ready to go.
Just that the first thing that popped into my head, it would be fun to be the hero of Flight of the Amazon Queen. That'd be cool. Sort of like an Indiana Jones type.
Yeah.
You get the girl, you are a swashbuckling type, you got a sense of humor. That might be kind of fun. And plus, you don't want to be a little geek like the dude in Monkey Island. You want to be a little more rugged than that. But I don't want to be Indiana Jones. I want to be like somebody else. So that comes to mind. I wouldn't mind being the lead character in Wings. That'd be kind of fun.
No, it
But I don't know
wouldn't.
if I could.
You'd die over and over again.
No, not me. I'm an unbelievable ace. I would
Oh,
be.
okay.
I would make it to the whole war. That's my movie boat.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So that would be cool. So I'd go with one of those two.
Mm. Yeah, I think that there's lots of, in Amiga games, I would probably have to go with the dude in Sword of Sodan. He's a ripped gentleman, much like myself.
Problem
And
with
I
that is
could
it's an unbeatable game where you'll be slaughtered
no,
repeatedly.
no, and I can deal with enemies only coming from my right. It's when they come from behind that I have trouble.
Yeah, yeah, that's all of us.
Ravi asks, have you ever created a mixtape? What songs were included and who was it for?
I have created a mixtape back in the day, and this is back in the day with my double
Well,
cassette
I
deck.
should hope it wasn't like last week.
I mean, I'm sure people still do that,
No,
but
who
it's like
creates
but
mixtape?
now it's a playlist, right? It's the
Well,
same
that's a
basic
different
fare.
thing. Okay, well, I mean, I'm
The end
thinking
result's the same, right?
I don't think it's the same at
It's
all. But
a
anyway, you can answer first. Go
well.
ahead.
Listen, if you this is an interesting way to go. So let's ponder it. So to make it a dub tape, to make one of those things, you've got to have a double cassette
Yeah,
recorder or something like
right,
that, right? So nobody's got those now. But
right.
like when you could? I don't know if you ever did this, but whenever I did a mixtape for somebody, and it wasn't always just some chick. Like I'd make stuff for like hoes, for example. They'd be
Mhm.
funny stuff. So, but I
Mhm.
mean, when you make it, what matters? The content and the order of the content matter, right? So you could simulate that with a playlist theoretically. I made Me and Hose had this. It was before rap. It was just like an abuse battle where we would remix stuff to make each other look dumb. And he did that to me. He was way better at it than me. So we did that a lot. And we would also do remixes just for our own personal amusement. I have given a girl or two some sets of songs that really speak deeply about my soul. You
Mhm.
know,
Mhm.
lots of men without hats in there, for example. Lots of lots lots of stuff like that. Lots of
Did
they
they
might
have a
be
power
giants.
ballad
Might
that
have
was
made
like
it. Yeah,
the seventh track on the Safety Dance
yeah.
album? So
The problem, my
heartfelt
problem
ballad.
is, like I always envied people that could do poetry, right?
Mhm.
Because you have to have a certain depth and soul to do it. I'm like the kiddie pool. I'm not. I'm shallow, and I just can't draw upon any sort of inner spiritual power to put down moving words, onto paper. And my musical tastes at the time were quite similar. Dopey. It's like, let's see, Men Without Hats, Howard Jones, get them all in there. It was all good. So I'm not saying I made the best mixtapes, but they wouldn't be depressing. I will say that. But yes, I've done it many times. What about you?
So I made mixtapes and they were mostly for girls and it was in high school. This is how you could tell a girl that you liked her when you were like, "Hey, why don't you listen to this?" And then the girl would be like, "Thanks." I'd be like,
It,
"Yes, she's
is it
into
just by
me."
giving her the tape? Aren't you saying like I like you? Isn't that
Yes.
the
Well, that was my hope. My hope
yeah?
would be she would be like she would go home, she would wonder if I liked her, and then she would listen to the songs and she'd be like, "Boy, this is just how I feel about him. I'm going to reciprocate in kind."
Did a woman ever give you a mixtape?
Yeah, actually. So I'm older than you, of course. I'm by older, I mean younger. And in my generation, the mixtapes that we made were less commonly tape to tape than they were CD to tape. Because by the time
Yeah,
I was in high school, everybody had CDs, but nobody had CD burners. And so you dub songs from a CD onto a tape.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and my first real girlfriend, serious girlfriend, she made me a tape one time, and it's how I found out about Tori Amos because she loved Tori Amos.
I loved her back
So
then too myself.
yeah, yeah, and so that and the when I was in college, early college, I would make we would make burn CDs of things from Napster or whatever. And like my friend Joey and I would play a game. I'd be home from break and he worked at Fox's. They were on Tays Valley Road. And so he'd work the night shift. So we'd stay up all night and we'd each make a CD that had 10 tracks on it and we'd each listen to each other's CD, and then we would rank the order of the tracks in our favorite. This was like a game that we'd play over and over and over again. So it was like a really geeky version of the movie High Fidelity.
Yeah, yeah, it sounds like it. Well,
Yeah.
it's funny. I haven't thought about doing that for a while. But having the double cassette deck, man, it was a great time to be alive. You could also tape stuff off the radio,
Hmm.
double trouble. It was great.
Yeah, yeah. And these days, I mean, giving a girl a playlist, that's lame. You've got to give her something that's real, because and here's another thing too. Like you give a girl a mixtape, there's music on there you guarantee she doesn't own because she's not into the weird crap you like. I mean, I'm only speaking for myself.
I,
And so like, but when you give a girl a playlist, like she can have access to that music and she's probably already heard it a million times. So
all I'm saying is, if anyone listen, by the way, don't think for a minute that I'm speaking about playlists to a girl, just like because I just know it's common. So if anyone listen to this, I would love your comments below. Have you ever given or received a playlist from a special lady or some other goof that would fall into the category of mixtape? There you go.
that sounds good. That sounds good. Ravi's second question is: have you ever invested in cryptocurrency? I'll take this one first. Yes, I have. It was a horrible disaster.
Yeah,
It
we're
was
great for you.
it was in the year of our Lord 2017. It was the first time that the crypto thing really started to take off. I think Bitcoin might have hit $8,000 or $9,000. And I was like, I'm in, brother. I'm all in. And so did I buy Bitcoin? No. I bought something called Litecoin. Yeah, Litecoin. And it went down to about 10% of what I originally paid for it. And then I withdrew the funds. And that was the end of my crypto adventure. Now, at the same time, I did mine some Bitcoin. This was back in the day, and so I had this new graphics card, and I still have that original Bitcoin that I mined, and so it's currently sitting in my wallet, and I think it might be worth upwards of $80. So I mean, it's pretty good, doing pretty good.
I've never, when Bitcoin first came around, I was leery of it. As one could be. And then I'll watch your hijinks because they were quite public on
Oh yeah.
Discord,
Oh yeah.
and even back before we had Discord on the other thing we had, I think
Why?
it was on. And so I was like, man, because by the way, as I recall, you weren't the only Discordian to take a bath
Oh no.
on
There
some of
were
this
there were
stuff.
quite a few of us that were all
And
in.
now, one thing I've learned from watching these the downfall of influencers videos is one thing it's given me is an insight into how totally worked that these coins are.
Yeah.
They are the biggest,
It's the ultimate grift.
illegaliest, scammiest crap that you've ever seen. Including, I was just reading about when the president got elected. Of course, he had a Bitcoin, but his wife had one.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually heard from the people that personally were involved in the scamming of suckers on the Melania coin. It's public knowledge. But these things are all a huge scam. Please, for the love of God, be very careful before investing into crypto. Now, all that said, if you're a insider, you could fleece the marks quick and make a bundle of cash. So if you're that kind of person and you've got the right connections, you too can be a Bitcoin millionaire. But not me.
Ravi's third question is, what was your favorite radio station and why?
Well, FM 105 back in the day, because they played hard rock,
Mhm.
and I would listen to that. That was the only station I listened to. I will say, AM 580 played Reds games, I believe, is where it was on. Is that right, Bo?
Yeah, that's
Was it
right. Yeah, 580.
So I would listen to AM 580 because I used to listen to, like to listen to the ball games. They would every once in a while they should actually have radio shows that would show up on AM, like like that thing on the Beatles or some other stuff. But
Mhm.
then I always enjoyed listening to Rush Limbaugh back in the day, so I could get real mad and yell at that guy. But he was entertaining. I used to listen to him on there as well. So I would say that one. But when it came to music, the stations we had around here were mostly pop stations, country stations. There was really only one rock station that I got consistently, and that was 105.
Yeah.
FM 105.
You know, if 105 had the advantage is that no matter where you were, you could pick it up strong,
Yeah.
My favorite stations, I've got two answers. My favorite music station from back in the day was 101.5 The River. They were a classic rock station. They played basically stuff from the mid to late 60s all the way through the late 70s.
Yeah, they were good. I liked them too, but I didn't get them. The signal wasn't as good in a lot of places
No,
I went.
no, and that was tough to pick up sometimes.
Yeah.
I learned I learned so many great songs just by listening to that station.
Yeah.
And the other station that I listened to religiously was when I first moved to DC. I didn't know anybody, I didn't have any friends, and I had these long commutes on the Beltway every day, and that's when I started getting into sports talk radio. And I listened to Sports Talk 980 literally for hours and hours a day. And I was in a bad state of mind. I was depressed. I was going through a failed relationship, and having somebody just talking about worthless nonsense is sometimes very comforting. When they're talking about the Redskins D line for the upcoming game for about 4 hours at a time, sometimes you just want something you can just turn your brain off to.
Those sports talk, they make me not like sports, and they also make me not like radio. I just can't. I can't. I don't want to use the word I use to describe those on this show, but I've got a word, and they're just like, I don't like them. I know people love them. It's just not. I hit the wall.
I understand why. I understand why you wouldn't. But I was
Yeah.
for the period of life that I was in, they were a friend that I could depend on.
We should mention NPR too, because I do listen.
Yeah.
Now I listen to more NPR than I do anything else, and in podcasts. So.
My favorite current radio station is BBC 5 Live. I listen to them every day going to work. I'll listen to a program called Wake Up to Money with Sean Farrington.
I don't get any of that stuff, unfortunately, but yeah.
Now Ravi is normally we normally limit our questions to 3 per user on Ask the Amigos, but Ravi's such a MVP. We're going to allow him a 4th bonus question. He says, describe a proper barbershop.
Easy. So it's brick. It's got a gravel parking lot. You pull in. There's always a pickup truck out there and a work truck out there. There's a little bit of grass around it, and it's got the pole. But it's not a full pole. It's an elevated pole. You know what I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm.
And then you go in there, and then there's some chairs around the wall, and they're playing probably AM5, just like we talked about.
Right.
They're playing like the talk radio station, or they're playing like country.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's some dudes in there like reading these magazines that are sitting around, and then on the wall there might be some sports stuff or whatever, and then there's stuff that's been in there since you were a child. Like everything is exactly the same. The chairs are the same. There's hair on the floor, and there's a couple. It's always dudes. There's never any women in here ever.
Mm-hmm.
I've never seen a woman, and they're always dudes. And they've also got this. Remember those things? You ever been like had a little kid at this or a place like this? They've got like this booster seats
Yeah.
that go
Yeah.
on. There's always a couple of those sitting on the corner of the room, and there may be magazines like sometimes they'll have stuff on like guns or hunting, or sometimes they'll have stuff on like military weaponry.
Right.
I've seen
Well,
that
that's
in
why
there.
I think my first exposure to Soldier of Fortune magazine was at a barbershop.
Yeah. And then sometimes the barber's talking to the dudes because they all know each other.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't know them, but you feel like you're amongst your peers because this is with a manly pursuit of getting a beard cut or a haircut, you know.
Yeah.
And then you look over and there's the bottle with the blue stuff in it. I mean, that's legit.
Mm-hmm.
They've got that gimmick hanging off the chin you can sharpen the straight razor with. They got that gimmick. Although I don't think I've ever seen them use the straight razor, but they got it.
Just in case.
And on the wall somewhere, there's some pictures from like the 50s of different haircuts,
Mm-hmm.
just in case you get stuck. You know what I mean?
And they each have a number assigned to them. Give me
That's right.
give me the 4.
Give me the 4. That's exactly right. You want the 4. That's the Art Garfunkel. Okay, I can do that. And then guess what? You got your kid there or whatever. After the thing's over, the kid gets a sucker.
Mm-hmm.
You tip the guy. You pay in cash.
Yep.
But, I mean, these days you probably don't have to, but if you're in the right spot, you do. And then you're out the door. And then you say goodbye to everybody and you get in your pickup truck and drive. That's my idea of a barbershop.
Yeah. I'm with you 100%. I feel like we were lucky to grow up, here in town. I don't know about you, but I always got my hair cut at Rapolds when I
Not
was
me.
when I was old enough to not get my hair cut by my dad anymore.
I went to Bob's.
Okay,
Bob's is still there.
I can tell you were describing Bob's by the way that you
Yeah.
described Bob's.
Yeah, I've been to Rapolds, but our neighbor was the Rapolds' brother.
Mm.
And so
There was quite a few of those guys.
But the guy that ran the barbershop, we weren't real keen on. His
Mm.
son was a real jerk, Rod.
Yeah.
I'm calling you out, Rod, if you hear this. You need to
Rod
be
is the
nicer.
guy. He looks like a barber. He's probably your age, so you knew him when he was young. But when I
Is
was,
that what he is?
but I mean, yeah, he's a barber. He
Okay,
took
good.
over for his dad, Steve and Rod.
I didn't know that place is still there. But like I was describing Bob's, but I mean they're mostly all like that,
Yeah.
aren't
Yeah.
they? And
Yeah.
occasionally the barbers wear smocks,
Mm-hmm.
and occasionally they'll get the broom and they might sweep. They won't really sweep the hair up. They just kind of shove it aside.
Shove it aside. That's
They'll
right.
get it later, man.
But I mean, one of the first times that I really felt like a manly man was when I left my house via my feet and walked to Rapolds. Walked down behind the Baptist church, went down the hill, that thing, and sat in there amongst the men and read my Baseball Digest magazine and waited for my turn to get my hair cut.
When I got the job with the cops,
Mm-hmm.
I walked into Bob's, and now Bob's long gone.
Yeah.
So I don't know who runs it now, but it doesn't matter. Usually it's better with an old guy. But I came in, he goes, "What can I do for you?" I was like, "I want you to shave my head bald." He goes, "You're cutting off the ponytail?" I'm like, "Yes, just cut everything off." And he did. That was where I got my head shaved. I just took it over there. That's the last haircut I ever had in real life. It's the last time I ever had a haircut was at Bob's. They shaved my head, then I went to get the job with the cops. That's the way it went.
That's the way it went
sad.
down.
But I have taken Luke there several times. It's funny, his auntie takes him for haircuts now because one of his granny's wishes after she was sick was to make sure that Leah took him for proper haircuts at the hair salon.
Oh my
So that's where
gosh.
so against my better judgment, I'm not going to break family traditions. That's where he goes.
I the last time I went to get my hair cut was I told my barber to shave my head, and I also sold him my drone at the same time. It was a 2-for-1 deal.
Did you ever go to the barber with your dad back in the day?
No.
See, that's the way I remember
Because
going
my
in there
dad
with
was
my
a
dad.
Bob's guy. He always went to Bob's, but Rapples just seems so quaint and some, some straight out of the 50s that I always wanted to go there. So we went to separate barbers.
There you go.
Boy, that was probably riveting conversation for everybody else.
Sorry, I love that question. It was so nice. I miss going to barbers. Oh.
Yeah, I do too. David Hearn Ryder asks, "Do you believe we really landed on the moon?"
My dad, for the longest time, did not.
Mm-hmm.
I do, and I think there are scientific ways to prove we were there because I found out that they implanted things in the surface of the moon that you could basically shine like a laser up to, and they're there, like they
Right.
were put there. You you
Right.
could tell, and so yes, I do think we did been to the moon. How that was said, there is some interesting evidence to the contrary. I'm not going to listen. I'm not the kind of guy that's going to dismiss it. But again, this is another one of those things that were much more amusing to me, say 25 years ago than it is now. But yeah, I do think we were there.
My favorite piece of evidence is when somebody came up and started shouting at Buzz Aldrin that we didn't land on the moon, and he stood up and punched them in the face.
I
That's
love
all I need.
Buzz, and
Yeah.
that was he pummeled that geek.
Yeah.
I mean, even if you don't believe we went to the moon, Buzz Aldrin's an old man who's a hero.
Yeah.
Even if he didn't go to the moon, he did other stuff. He's a war veteran.
Right.
And he's also all man.
Yeah.
He's not taking any crap from a geek.
No.
He took that kid to school, fist school.
Question number 2 from Dave. He says, "If you had to be trapped in a Cinemaware game and beat it for real to escape, which one would you pick?" My answer is not It Came from the Desert.
It wouldn't be King of Chicago either. I can tell you that right now. I died in that about 1,000,000 times.
I'd say probably Rocket Ranger is the one that would probably be the easiest way to get. I mean, if you can get out of the stabbing mini game.
What about the getting off the ground mini game? That was almost impossible. I would play TV sports basketball. I think that's the best shot I'd have.
Okay, that's probably a good one. Lemmings and worms. This is Dave's third question. Lemmings and worms come together, wormings, to make a game. Yes or no?
I like lerms.
Mm.
Lemmings and worms. Well, I could see lemmings versus worms. Okay, now here's how this works. If you pick one or the other, okay? If you're the lemmings, your goal is to make the best, most impenetrable base you can, given your lemmings worker abilities, right? And then if you're the worm side, your goal is to destroy that base and to kill the lemmings in a certain time period, you see?
Mm-hmm.
And then that's how it works. You've got X amount of time to build something that if you're the lemmings, and X amount of time to destroy the thing if you're the worms, come together to big game, multiplayer. It sounds like a winner.
I don't think that's a bad idea. The
Make
problem
it happen, Happy.
the problem is that Worms is a game where you really take your time a lot, and Lemmings is a game that you got to be on the ball all the time. So you'd have to come up with a way to kind of split the difference and still make it fun.
Well, in Worms, you're actually on the clock a lot. I mean, in the later versions, like you've got like you could. I know when we play on like with Chad and the guys, we like to turn the limit down to like 30 seconds or 15 seconds.
Yeah, you can make it like
gets
that.
a lot snappier. Yeah.
You're right. Graham Vebke asks us a question. He says his first question is, "I just recently had an allergy test." He says he's allergic to penicillin, mosquito bites, and horsehair, and coffee. So that's his poker hand of allergies. He says, "Have you ever had an allergy test, and did you get any surprising results?" Excuse me. Have you ever suspected you were allergic to something, but just didn't get a test done?
I think you have an allergy test when you're a kid. It seems like I had one at some point.
Okay.
I'm not allergic to anything, nothing, and I've never felt like I was. So I mean, I haven't had. It's not like they pumped me full of penicillin or been bitten by 1,000,000 mosquitoes. But I mean, I've never had something like a bee stick or something hit me where I was like incapacitated.
Right. You've never had an allergic reaction to anything.
Yeah.
I don't believe, or maybe when I was a little kid, because my parents always told me I was allergic to grass, which I am. Like I will break out. Like when I was in Boy Scouts one time, I just took a big pile of weeds and tore them apart in my hands because I had nothing better to do. And then the next day I was all broken out. And I mean, There might have been poison ivy in there. Who can say? But I think that I'm just allergic to just don't do that. Don't do that.
You know you're bored when that's how you're passing the time.
Listen, in
Just
Boy
sitting
Scouts
around
there was
picking
there
crap.
were a lot of
The
those
thing is,
similar things in
I've
Boy
done the same
Scouts.
thing. Just pull weeds up and just throw them in the air.
Yep,
I've done it. I've
yep.
been there because the thing about camping is once you set up camp, that's pretty much the end of the fun.
That's right. It's time to settle in, start pulling weeds. So, but I am one of the allergies that it causes me a lot of stress is that in my just over the past 10 years, I've developed a really severe allergy to dander, animal dander. I used to
Oh
be
yeah.
fine. I used to be fine around all kinds of pets. I could do whatever I want, but now I cannot be in a room like an enclosed space with a cat. Like there's a cat at church that like will wander the halls, and like I cannot be in the room shut up with that cat for longer than a half an hour, or all my throat will start to close up. So
Huh.
that
Yeah,
sucks.
I've heard of that one. Yeah, that
That
does
sucks
suck.
because I love animals and I want to be
Yeah.
around them and I want to pet them and be all up in them, and I can't, and that sucks. So
That's sorry, Boat.
yeah.
Get you one of those robot pets. Those are cool.
I thought about it. I thought about getting one of those robot cats that's like, and then, oh, actually, I'll tell you another story. Okay. So, part of being married for a long time is you realize that you sleep better when you don't always sleep together because of snoring and other issues. So
Yeah.
these days, Eve's been sleeping in the guest room and we've been both sleeping better. But I tend to miss like having somebody sleeping next to you when you're used to it. So I've come up with a solution. Are you ready for this?
I'm, I'm sure I'm not. I'm sure
it's
I'm not.
it's not nearly as exciting as I might have let it up to be. Listen, I got one of those hot water bottles, right? And then before I go to bed, I fill up the hot water bottle, I put it in like on her side of the bed, and then like at night when I wake up and I feel lonely and a little bit afraid, like I just kind of roll over and I feel the heat from that hot water bottle and it brings me comfort.
Hmm. Well, I was gonna go with inflatable sheep, but I guess I don't know which is more weird. I feel lonely. Thank God for this hot water bottle.
It
What's it
is kind of
shaped
weird,
like?
but it
Is
is
it
kind of
shaped
weird.
like a hot water bottle or something else?
Well, also, that you always have a plan when you're sleeping with somebody. Like, what happens if somebody comes into the room? Like, I always think about, like, what happens if Joker shows up, right?
We never had planned
Okay.
for that.
And so, like, if Joker shows up, what am I going to do? And so, like, I always have to sleep on the left side of the bed, but in our room, that's where the door is. Okay. So,
Yeah.
like, I'm like the first line of defense. So I'm always like, well, how am I going to kind of roll out of the way if
Uh huh.
Joker comes in, but also not seem like I'm like throwing my wife under the bus? And so, like, but with the hot water bottle, now I think about like if Joker comes in, then I can fling the hot water bottle at him and then roll and then hit that spot between the bed and the wall, sink down in it. He'll never know I'm there.
Who would he think threw the water bottle?
It's dark. It's a distraction technique.
You know, here's a just I don't want to burst your hot water bottle here, but you know the Joker's tangled with Batman and sometimes Superman. Do you think throwing a hot? He's been shot and stabbed and poisoned, thrown off the top of roofs. He's been mauled. You think throwing a hot water bottle and then you're not Jackie Chan. You're not gonna. It's not like you're gonna do a leaping somersault in the corner and be like a ninja with all those smoke bombs. You're gonna fall out of bed, ram your head into the headboard, flop over, lay on the ground crying, and then Joker's just gonna come up and just look at you and be like, nah, too easy. Too pathetic. If that's your plan, I believe it. Make yourself look so sad and pathetic that Joker just even the Joker is at that deranged, he just walks out. He goes to the next house.
Graham's next question is as an extension to my previous month's question
Oh
about planned
Christ.
obsolescence. That
Okay.
dishwasher I mentioned that was a premium branded one, we've now replaced with an LG which had issues. It's had more issues with the dishwasher.
That's a bummer.
Um he says, knowing about planned obsolescence, are you and me, interested or are there still brands you remain loyal to or prefer to buy?
I mean, I've had so few new things that were of a big purchase. Like everything I get used almost.
Mm-hmm.
I think my washer and dryer and my TV are Samsung.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. and the TV's been solid after I got screwed on TV. The old, I think it was the old ONN
Yeah.
dump crapper from Walmart.
Hmm.
So the TV's been fine. The washer and dryer is outstanding. That was a
Yeah.
good choice. So I guess I would say I have some loyalty in that department to Samsung. I used to have absolute loyalties in computers and
Hmm.
PCs back in the day. Certain types of memory, certain types of hard drives, certain types of processors, and certain types of
I
motherboards.
want to know about the type of memory that you were loyal to. Were you a rip jaws or nothing kind of guy?
I'm talking way back. Okay. There
Okay.
were
Take me
memory,
back.
there were like two or three people, crucial or something. Might have
Mm.
been my memory of choice. And it's been so long. But like I never trusted Intel.
Hmm.
Almost always went with AMD, for
Hmm.
example. There were certain motherboard manufacturers that I liked that are gone, by the way. And here's something else. Like there were certain hard drive manufacturers I always went with, But the problem is, a lot of the motherboard manufacturers went away, and now I'm not as familiar with what's going on now. So I still try to. There are still certain. I try to stick to something I've heard of.
Hmm.
But like the days of the brand loyalty for PCs are long gone because all the stuff I knew about, like I can't tell if one thing's. Now I have to resort to just listen to somebody that knows more than I do. And there was a time where I knew more.
Hmm.
So, but I mean, when it comes to just like cars, I've got no loyalty because I've never really bought my own car new. I've never gotten a new car, so I don't have any. What about? I know you've had new everything. What
Yeah.
about you?
Well, I was thinking about this, and my first thought was, sure, there's stuff I'm loyal to, but to be honest with you, like whenever I buy something, it's always different than the thing that I bought before. I've never bought two of the same brand. I guess the only thing I'm loyal to is the iPhone because I always get a new iPhone. I had one Android phone, and other than that, I've been all iPhone. So I guess that's the one thing, but that's not necessarily brand loyalty as much as it's like
That's drinking the Kool Aid.
I'm
That's what that
heavily
is.
I'm heavily invested in the
Yeah,
ecosystem.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and so, but like, like my last computer was a Windows machine and now I got a Mac laptop. My last TV was a Panasonic and now I have a Samsung. So, I always just kind of I'm just like you, I do some, preliminary online research and I wait for a good deal. And if it seems like it's a good deal, I get it.
And part of the problem also is a lot of the brands you would know are no longer made by the people that made them when you knew them.
Yeah.
Like I knew
Yeah.
about RCA. I knew about stuff like that. Like that stuff's all long gone. Who makes it now? Who's making that stuff? I don't know. I don't know. Are they any good? I don't know. Probably not.
Um, Pajako asks, what is the most disappointing ending to a game you have played, and did it ever stop you from going back and playing it again? I'll answer first. I've
All right.
finished so few video games that even when a game ending is crap, I'm still rejoicing if I beat it legitimately. But I've never beaten like one of these crazy, Euro games where like when we use the cheats and you get to the end screen, you're like, oh, that was it? That's no good. I guess the ending to the original Final Fantasy on NES was pretty disappointing, but at the same time, I was so happy that I finally beat it that I didn't care.
I've got sort of a cheeky question or answer, but it's I'm going to go with it. And I've mentioned this before, but I was really upset about this. I played Pitfall 2 for like the majority of my life without
Hmm.
beating it.
Hmm.
And one day I said, you know something? You're going to beat it. You're going to sit down and beat Pitfall 2. And so I was playing the Atari computer version because I thought, man, I don't think I'd played it that much. I was like, man, this is a solid version. I recommend it, by the way. I know you've played it, both. And I finally beat it. I got to the end of the game, and then the game kept going, but should have been over. And then I found out that that Atari version had extra levels that weren't on any other version.
Oh,
And
yeah, I
I,
remember you saying that.
I was so furious. I've never been so mad. And I just gave up. I'm like, that was the last straw, man. But so I would put that one on there. The worst time I ever had was where the game just didn't end when it was supposed to.
Hmm. Ricky DeRocher asks, is there something nice that Boat can say about AGA? Absolutely. There's tons of nice stuff I can say about AGA. AGA shows you how good ECS OCS chipset is. because when you see the quote unquote enhancements of AGA games, it shows you just how much of the heavy lifting is being done by hardware from 1985. That's the best thing about EGA is it shows you the genius of the original chipset on the Amiga.
Well, that's not the. I mean, that's a backhanded compliment. I will say this. Just you didn't ask me, but I'm going to say something anyway.
I'm in.
Here's where the AGA chipset shines today. All these arcade ports, all the new stuff, it's showing off the AGA chipset as like something that isn't just there. Like it does quality stuff. It helps to make these games look better and play better, and opens up avenues that AGA games of the past did not go down.
Okay,
So
I'll buy
I
that.
think it's being taken advantage of more now in 2025 as we record this than it ever was back in the day, and you can understand why. Because back in the day, a large percentage of the people that owned Amigas didn't have the AGA chipset. So why sink so much time into messing with it when the majority of the people that getting your game would not be able to use that? And AGA exclusives proved one thing: they're not going to sell in great numbers, and so it's a catch-22. Now, no one cares. You've got emulation. Everyone's got AGA. Somehow they can get to it through the MiSTer or whatnot. Now they're more likely to use it because the advanced technology that the AGA chipset had can be utilized. You don't have to worry about who's going to be able to play your stuff. That's my answer to that.
Yeah, I think that's legitimate. Retro Jerry asks, now that the Xbox 360 and PS3 are 20 years old, is it time to add them to the wheel? What is the cutoff for retro? Pre-internet connection built in? I think that anything can be retro. There's stuff that my students, pine for the days where they're already nostalgic for stuff from when they were kids, and they were born in 2013. When I say my kids, I mean my students. Do I personally think the Xbox 360 and PS3 are retro? I'd say yes. I think that they are this is my thing. If you've got a machine that you can put a game in and play it, then it can qualify for like a retro console. But if you have a machine that requires like patching of the games to do and you can't patch the games anymore, then you've lost something there.
Well, it doesn't matter what we think is a retro system.
Well, it does because we're answering the question on Ask the Amigos.
I'm getting to what you said there. I'm agreeing with you. It doesn't matter whether we think something's retro or not. It sort of made its own decision, and Boat just nailed it. If I take I heard today on Reese's podcast that they have finally, after all these years, they have hacked the dashboard of the Xbox 360. So presumably, sometime in the near future, we'll be able to easily soft mod an Xbox 360 and then load up a hard drive or whatever. Okay, which would be fine. That'd be great because I've got a couple of those things. But if you can't grab an Xbox, if I want to play, I don't know, WWF 2K, 18 or whatever, and I want to be able to play it on my Xbox 360, and I go and load up the Xbox and put it in there, if it says, whoa, I can't start, we can't connect to the, you're done. That's just it. The one thing you could say about everything pre-Xbox 360 was that it did not require a phone home, or it did not require you to patch on the fly or do a mass update. How many games do you hear about, Bode, that ship, and then when you get them, there's a 2 terabyte update?
Right, a 0-day patch or whatever.
Yeah, that's either because, number one, they just didn't ship all the game on the disc or hardly any of it, or two, it was so screwed up when they launched it that they had all those games are going to be gone. You're going to have, and this is where hackers and pirates are going to get together, and they'll have to do all the patching and stuff and make an image that you could get somewhere. But then you're adding layers and layers of difficulty to, playing this stuff. Yeah. There's always the emulation route, but again, someone's going to have to go through and do that work, and that's a new extra level of work that's going to have to go into each and every game that did not have to go into the games from before it. So for me, like Boat said, we play on ARG, we'll play pretty much anything. I thought about playing Xbox 360. It wouldn't bother me. I don't. For me, I don't really think about anything that's not currently in vogue. It's probably old, and it's okay. Play with it. But yeah, boats nailed it. It was perfectly the way you said it. If you can't just play it, it doesn't matter what you think. You're just boned. You can't. There's nothing you can do about it.
Ricky DeRocher asks, what item, either hardware or software, would you consider to be your holy grail of retro game collecting?
You ever thought?
I'm gonna go with the old standby. I'd still really love to have an Acorn Archimedes.
Yeah, that's a good choice. You know,
My second place is the Hit Boy MSX, that cherry red MSX. That's
that's
beautiful.
a beauty. Yeah, it's a
Yeah,
beauty too. Those are obtainable, but they'll cost you.
yeah.
Um, if we're just talking computers, that was it computers or just
Hardware or software.
because I mean, if well, hardware wise, um, I mean, I'm sort of with you on the Archimedes. I'd love to have one of those. I'd love to have a FM Towns or Towns Marty. As you know, I like to have one of those. Um, software wise, I'd like to have a boxed copy of One Must Fall 2097, which there were very, very few. That would be something I'd like to have.
Hmm.
That's the first thing that pops into my mind. Software wise, you have a piece of software you'd like to obtain.
Yeah, I guess a big box stack up for the NES. That's the only black box game. No, I guess I've never owned a. I don't think I have Donkey Kong Junior Math either, but I'd like to complete that collection. I'd
You
like
could
to
probably
complete
get
that
that one pretty
collection.
cheap. Math. I think I've seen
No,
that one
no,
around. Oh,
they're
really?
yeah, $1,000 for a good condition Donkey Kong Junior Math.
Man, how many of those did I see out the pawn shops over the years? Jeez.
Donkey Kong Junior Maths, I guarantee you didn't see too many in a box. They didn't make that many.
I've seen them though. I've
Oh
seen them.
yeah, they're
Yeah.
around. You can get loose. It's not bad, but finding a good condition boxed copy, that's tricky.
Man, can you imagine dropping? Would you drop that much money on a box copy?
No,
If you,
that's why I don't
what
have one.
let's say your crypto went bananas. You made $1 million.
Okay,
Would you go through
sure,
and live your retro dreams at that
absolutely.
point?
I'd complete my black box collection. I'd have a bunch of box Atari 8-bit software too. I love that stuff.
I
Um,
know you. I think you would, because you're such a pious dude. You'd take that money and you'd be like, I'm gonna go buy this Donkey Kong, and then you'd like, I'm gonna go like put this in the donation tray. That's what you do, Boat.
well, thank you. I appreciate you thinking that well of me. Andy Craig asks, now that you're famous, it's going to pause there for laughter.
Let that one lay out there for a while.
Is it time to level up your merchandising game? What products are in the works? How about some action figures? May I suggest an Amiga destroying cat bobblehead and a Gambletron 2000 phone case?
I like all those. I've always, before we even knew about Neil back in the day,
Mm-hmm.
I always thought it'd be fun to do a calendar. But
Mm-hmm.
ours would be sexy. But
Yeah.
we're out now. We can't do it now. I've always thought it'd be fun to do some sort of book.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem is I'm an untalented hack, and so like if we did like a review book, and I've got the cover in my head. I've had it for years. It's me and you holding like a ZX and an Amiga, and we're in overalls and we're barefoot. And we're wearing straw hats. Because we
Okay.
got to play into the hillbilly fantasy, and it'd be like reviews from the mountains or some kind of crap like that. And then our homespun game choices would be in the text. But the problem is, I can't say it's about boats are great, but I suck. I am literally an anchor that would weigh down any of these projects. So aside
Well,
from that, I've got nothing.
I think your ideas are dumb because I have the ultimate merchandising tool, and that's the Amigos Studios playset, where it's just like Castle Grayskull, except it's your building and it's my basement.
Yeah,
And
that'd
so
be great.
yeah, and so that comes with little figures of us, and if you get you can get all of our recording equipment. You get the old lights and everything from back when we
Yeah,
used to use those old
we could
lights.
we could get the projector and just
Yep.
remember, and we could just scatter whiskey bottles around for like that night 2017 feel.
Yeah,
In the
exactly.
basement.
And I already got the jingle there. Comes with sleeping Chad on the couch.
Yes, yes. I was gonna say we could have guest appearances by the boys. Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I had these Bob and Doug McKenzie play set, and it was like
Mhm.
it was like their set. with the coffee table and the
Yeah,
cooler and all the it'd be just like that. It'd be
yeah.
we could sell them both. That would be great. I like that idea.
I don't
So
know how you make action figures. I know somebody made a Neil figure, Stroud
I've seen
Man.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So if you're listening to this right now and you can help us make action figures, hit us up.
See, that worries me though, because that life size picture of me that Velociraptor's got in his
Yeah.
house.
Yeah, he
I don't
dresses it
like the
every
idea of
day.
someone having a action figure size me over doing God knows what with it. I could see where that could be a disturbing, Bo, if I'm honest.
Pajako asks, following up on Andy's question, if British Jones was to get his own line of merch or a spin-off show, what would you most like to see?
Well, British Jones is a kind of got an attitude.
Yeah, yeah, he's a diva.
I think he should get like a cricket bat,
Like
like
the
the young
manager of
ones.
Spinal Tap? Oh, okay.
And just if and so every once in a while, if you like in the video where he flipped you off, he might take a crack you upside the head with that thing. If get
Well,
your cards right.
I think British Jones' true calling would be a television show similar to Shark Tank, where you have all these British bedroom coders bringing their games
Yeah.
to him, and British Jones, Simon style, just destroys them one by one.
I don't know. Did you ever see what was the name of that guy? That it was the insult comic dog.
Oh
That used
yeah,
to be on
trying.
Conan. Triumph.
Yeah,
I could see
yeah.
British Jones in a similar. Like it would be great to do wrestling commentating with British Jones, just like the third man. Now that would be high comedy because I'd say he'd have a lot to say about the crowd and
That's
the
true.
wrestlers.
That's
So I
true.
could see that too.
Joe Aquat asks, if retro gaming wasn't your hobby, what other hobby or activity do you suppose would be in its place? So we both have lots of hobbies, but say you could fill the retro gaming void that you have now with something else, what would it be?
I'd like to learn how to play piano. I was starting to learn back when I was a
Mm-hmm.
kid.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
You
it was,
still have that piano, don't you?
I still have my piano. It's a classic.
Yeah.
Classic piano. We rescued from a church. I was getting rid of it.
Mm-hmm.
A very rare piano. It's been sitting there unplayed for the longest time. But I think that would be kind of, I really need to do something more constructive. Most of my hobbies aren't what I would call, or maybe I should take up like, bird watching or just like walking in the park for something like that. Something to get a little more exercise. Maybe something
Yeah.
like that wouldn't be the worst idea.
I would probably channel all of my retro gaming energy into board games and play a lot more because I do miss playing with Jamie and Brent and Matt and all that gang. That is one thing that has taken a backseat since we started the podcast.
Yeah, of course. You also have to settle in to get murdered week after week
That's true.
and
That's
not come
true.
across a table and kill one of those two guys.
You're
I
right.
mean,
You're
board gaming
never
with the
winning any of
Brent,
those
you're
games.
you're begging for trouble.
Yeah. Jazz Dog asks, Elon Musk has granted you the power to create a new holiday. What is it and how do we celebrate it?
Huh. Well, I'm going to be totally non-political in my answer here. So I'm thinking to myself, I'm looking over the pantheon of people on Earth, and I'm thinking to myself, who is the least celebrated but does the most to like make life better? You know. So maybe we need to have like I don't know, like Scientist of the Year Day or Inventor Day. Something like these guys never get any love. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like who and I don't mean like the Nobel Prize. I mean just mean like someone who like go back through time. Like who invented this? Who came up with this formula? Who invented that? How did they come up with that? And that'd be a good way to celebrate them. Historical figures in science and technology day. How about that?
Okay. Okay. Well, I have a different idea. My idea is sort of like April Fool's Day, where it's sort of a commonly agreed upon day to do something. So April Fools, it's like try and play a joke on somebody and make them think something. Blah. So my idea for a holiday is take the other side day. This is a day where we all take the other side on the issues that we hold most dear to try and figure out what other people might think and why they hold those positions so strongly.
Very good. Walk in another man's shoe day.
That's right.
I
That's
like
right.
it, Boat. That's great. Well done.
Ricky DeRocher asks, "What do you consider to be one of the most underrated Amiga game?"
Huh, underrated. You have one in mind off the top of
It's
your
it's
head?
it's tough because most Amiga games I would say are underrated. Like I think there's probably about like 25 that people constantly talk about, and then there's a huge drop off after that for like the way that the majority of like people that are into retro games think about games.
Yeah,
But I mean, like a game like Alien Fishfinger, in the Amiga scene, lots of people know what that game is.
yeah.
But outside the Amiga scene, nobody knows what it is.
But I
So
mean, it's not really underrated. It's just underknown.
yeah. So yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. So a game that I don't know. Do you have any ideas?
You know, I've got two. They're both fighting games, and they both are sort of lampooned. But they, given the Amiga's checkered history with these games, I think these are two pretty successful attempts, and that would be Primal Rage and Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo, both of which could have been horrible because their predecessors were god awful, as you'll
Mm-hmm.
recall.
Mm-hmm.
But they made these for the Amiga. In the case of Primal Rage, they answered the question of having too few buttons by make the controls on that thing are outstanding. You could do almost everything you could do in the arcade, but they rigged the controls to where it works great. It's a brilliant system that they came up with. In the case of Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo, and of course this also Primal Rage, they shrank the characters down to make it more manageable for the Amiga, but you've got a pretty quality attempt at a Street Fighter game. And I'll even say Mortal Kombat 2 into the mix as well. All three of those are they're like sort of like lampooned. Now, granted, we're not playing them off disc. That makes a big difference. But in terms of their playability, I think they're pretty. I mean, a real good attempt for something that has one button and was the chipset's as old as it was. So I'm going to go with those three are my picks, I guess.
Okay.
Primal Rage probably my number one pick because no one ever talks about that.
While you've been talking, I've been listening to you, of course, but I've also been racking my brain to try and come up with an answer of a game that is underrated, like a game that the Amiga community at large thinks is not that great, but is actually great. And I don't know. I feel like in the Amiga community, like when you go on Lemon and stuff, most people when you read the reviews, they're like, this game is great. And there's a lot more overrated games than underrated games. I will say that Top Banana does not deserve the spot as worst game on the Amiga by a long shot. So
No,
if
well,
if
don't
any
worry.
if anything, I would say Top Banana is underrated because so many people think it's so horrible.
It's horrible in a genius way. That's what I
Yeah.
like about it. So what did
I
you
will
pick?
Top Banana.
Oh, that's a. What were you gonna pick before I grabbed the box?
I had no pick. That's what I was
You have
telling you.
nothing.
I can't think of a game that the Amiga community thinks is not that great and I think is actually pretty good. Like most games that I think are good, the Amiga community agrees with me. So I got nothing.
Well,
I'm
maybe we have
sorry.
to come back with that one. We might have to do
Yeah,
a think
I'm
about
sure I
that.
could
It's
think. I'm
hard.
sure I could think of something, but nothing comes to mind right off the top of my head.
Along the lines of this, just while we're here, do you find that like doing the show the way we do is conducive to having no knowledge of the Amiga library? Because I've found over the years that our turnaround is so quick, and we have to instantly. It's like every week I format my brain disk so I
Hmm.
can install a new game. And I know that game, like I know everything about that game for a week. And the second the show's over, reformat, dash Q, make it quick, and then I put another game in. And very rarely do games stand out so much that there's a little spot in my mind for them. Because of
Well,
course I'm also doing ARG and stuff too.
yeah, the way that I look at it is the old mind palace, just like Sherlock Holmes, where it's like I think about games in relation to other games, and that's how I remember it because it's useful to do comparisons. So just like when we just got done playing Warhead, I was like, okay, well, this game is like Elite, so let me reach back in the mind palace and pick out some things about Elite that I remember. But if you just ask me like, what do you think about this game? I'll be like, I don't. Did we play that? So there are definitely games that when we do our game of the year each year, I have little to no recollection of playing.
My mind palace is like an outhouse. That's it. I've got room for one man in there. That's it.
Yeah, the Happy talks about Adam's Family. That's not true. I think that among the Amiga community, it's recognized as being one of the best Euro platforming games. But maybe you're right. Maybe you're right. Maybe like outside of the Amiga community, like if I asked somebody that was into Super Mario, yeah, I'm officially changing my answer. You're right, Happy. Adam's Family, underrated game. You heard it here first. Pajako 6502 gives us our final question of the evening. He says, "Are there any arcade games where you prefer a particular home computer port instead?"
Hmm.
I have a couple
Wow.
right off the bat.
Get in there.
I would rather play Atari 2600 Defender than the arcade version of Defender. I would rather play the Atari 7800 version of Asteroids than the arcade version of Asteroids. There's two right off the bat.
But I mean, the one thing Asteroids has got for it in the arcades is cool looking. It
Well, yeah,
looks cooler than the Atari
Defender also
version.
looks cool in the arcade for the 3 seconds you're alive. The Atari 2600 Defender, I can play and have some success with.
Well, going on the 2600 is not the word. Like another one I would make a case for would be Space Invaders.
Yeah,
Which is
all
because
the
you get
different
so many
modes.
more options
Mm-hmm.
than you do on the in the arcade, and even something like Warlords, just because you get a lot of options. I mean, the arcade looks better, exponentially better, but the Atari 2600 version. I'm
You
trying to
know,
think of something more
I feel like
modern.
not enough people realize that particular facet of the greatness of Atari 2600
I
gaming.
agree with you 1,000,000%. No, I don't think people realize that the select game button does anything.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And you don't have the book, so you're
Mm-hmm.
not looking. But
Mm-hmm.
like, I mean, how many of those games? And the thing is, on the front of the box, there'll be like 70 games. You're like, eh. But like, I mean, look at like Combat. If
Mm-hmm.
you select all the games in there, there's tons.
Right.
And even stuff like Super Breakout and stuff. I mean, you get a lot of different options
Mm-hmm.
that make the games more fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, the I mean, let's face facts. The king dongs of those are Space Invaders, for sure, and Asteroids, especially on. And you're right, the 7800 version is outstanding. I'm trying to think. I could think of games that give you more. Like, and I'll use the Mega Drive version of Alcon or Slap Fight because you get the original game plus a reimagined game, and the original game plays just like it does in the arcade. Plus, you get the original music or the remix soundtrack for both versions. So you get a lot of bang for your buck. Am I saying I like Alcon on the Genesis more than the arcade? No, but it gives you so much that you could almost make a case for it. Plus, all the horrible, horrible, horrible ports of Alcon on every other system gives that one. That's why it's kind of stuck in my head. There are
There's a
versions.
couple more.
Yeah,
I've got more.
yeah, go.
I would rather play Bionic Commando on the Nintendo than the arcade game Bionic Commando, and I would rather play the NES version of Bump and Jump than the original Deco Bump and Jump.
I love the arcade version of that, but I mean that doesn't mean it's better. I mean, I will say that. Because they're both good. I
Yeah.
mean, I fell in love with that arcade game. I really did. You know how much I love it, and you
Hmm.
love it too.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, uh, I'm trying to think of games that came home. Like I'll tell you another one. And I don't know which version it is, but there are versions of Frogger that have the original Frogger and then but expound on the different levels of Frogger that you never get in the arcade. So Frogger's another one.
Oh,
It,
what did you? I'm sorry. I keep coming up
go
with
ahead.
ideas. How, but did you ever play the Game Boy version of Donkey Kong that has the original 5 levels? Then it's got like an additional 200 extra levels
Well,
that
I
are great.
did, but the problem is the different levels. I didn't think I thought they were not very Donkey Kong like. After
Yeah,
you get
it
past the
changes into a different game. You're right.
yeah, and so that's sort of I heard that I was like, oh boy, I'm excited, and but then I played it. I was just like, yeah, what happened here? Where's the
Hmm.
this is not what I've signed up for.
Yeah.
So I think that's a goodly amount of games. I mean, I'm sure we could sit here and think of many more. Anytime you get more at home, or like I said, in Nintendo, in NES especially, having an arcade port meant that the game you're playing on Nintendo was a completely different game.
Right.
So sometimes it was better, and sometimes you were like pissed off. How about Punch Out?
Mhm.
The home version of Punch Out's exponentially better as a game than the arcade version, but it's not as attractive, obviously. But Super Punch Out's better too. In fact, I'd say every Punch Out's better than the arcade version of Punch Out. There's another
Mhm.
one. So I
Mhm.
think that's a goodly amount right there.
Yeah, 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 absolutely. Well, folks, that's going to do it for this month's Ask the Amigos. As always, if you're a member of our Patreon, you get access to our Discord server and you can ask us a question in the Ask the Amigos channel. We will answer it next month. Thanks as always for listening, and we'll see you next time. And until then, adios.
Adios.